What's going on, guys? It's Nate Dog! And today, I bring you my Sorcerer tank for the Elder Scrolls Online Markarth patch, the Paladin of Julianos. This Sorcerer tank is set up to help out newer players and also veteran players fill the role of a tank, with simple ways to trigger stuns on group of enemies, to abilities to immobilize several adds, along with still being very survivable. So, if you want to learn more about the Paladin of Julianos, info of this build is coming up next. Cue that intro. Now, before we get into the build, just want to let you all know that from race to weapon that I use in this build does not mean this is the best in the game. This is my idea of what I picture a Sorcerer tank, or even a Paladin of Julianos would be, from the costume to the weapon, to the race, and so on. Just keep in mind, if you change things in this build, you will have different stats than what I have. I still highly encourage you to run what you like though. I am willing to help you figure that out on your build to act similar to this one if you so wish. Just leave me a comment down below on how I can help you out. So, without further ado, let's dive into the build. Starting off in our character sheet, our max magicka is sitting at 17,000, max health at 4,700, with max stam at 22,400, with magicka recovery at 1,200, health recovery at 1,600, and stam recovery at 1,300. That is also on both bars, that stays the same. Starting with our sword and board bar, our spell damage is sitting at 1,100 with 13% critical chance. Weapon damage is at 1,200 with 14.4 weapon critical chance. Now if we go to our staff bar, our weapon damage goes down to 1,100. Now, going over to spell resistance and physical resistance on our sword and board bar, my spell resistance is sitting at 23,000, physical resistance at 23,800, with critical resistance at 1,300. Now, every character has a base stat of critical resistance, so this is not that I have impen on my character, because this is for PVE content, so that doesn't really matter for us. On our staff bar, though, our spell resistance drops down to 18,300, with physical resistance also going down to 19,100. Now, if we buff up our resistances here, on sword and board bar, our spell resistance goes to 28,900, pretty much 29,000, with physical resistance at 29,800. On our staff bar, our spell resistance is up at 24,200, with physical resistance at 25,000. Now for attributes here, I put all my attributes into health here to get my max health at 40,000. The reason for this is because in my guilds they want our tanks, in order to tank trials, they would like our tanks to have 40,000 health. You do not need to have 40,000 health in order to run vet dungeons. Most people say you only need about 36,000 health, but for me, like I said, mine's the kind of requirement that guilds want me to wear, so that's why my health is up this high. You do not have to have it up this high as well, so if you want to, you can actually take points out of health and put it into magicka and stam to help further balance your stats out. Now over into our boon. The boon I am running is the lady to increase my spell and physical resistance, just because I like a comfortable range of physical and spell resistance. For me, having physical and spell resistance roughly at that 23,000 marker before I buff my guy up is nice, and getting above 26,000 resistance is what I like. Most people also say that you only need 26,000 resistance to do any content, but for me, I just prefer resistance. Other boons you can use, or Mundus stones that you could use the Lord if you really want more health. You could use stuff to get yourself more recoveries, things like that, even if you want to even get yourself more critical chance also. But choices there are yours, but that's what I run. So, moving now over into the skills, starting on our sword and board bar. First skill we have is all the way down into to Storm Calling. But before we get into it, I just want to let you all know that the way I have my skill bar set up is the way I feel comfortable with running my stats. Or my abilities on my bar, I should say. This is what I feel comfortable with. This is what makes sense to me when I'm doing it. If you don't like where my skills are sitting, you can change it to what you guys like. This is just what I like. Some abilities need to be on the bar for certain reasons, and as we go through this into skills into passives, you'll understand why I have certain skills on the ability bar where they are at. But if you want to, you can change things around as location-wise. So, anyways, first ability that we have is down in Storm Calling. It is the second ability. Unlock starts as Lightning Form. We then morph it to Boundless Storm. This has a 23-second duration. This makes ourselves turning into a pure lightning form, zapping nearby enemies with electricity, dealing 376 shock damage every 1 second for 23 seconds. Yeah, we do a little bit of damage, but that's not the main reason why we run this. The main reason we run this is to get Major Resolve. This increases our physical and spell resistance by 5,900. Major Resolve got buffed this last patch for Markarth. This one up. It used to be only 5,280, now it's 5,900. Also on top of it, when we activate this ability, we get Major Expedition for a brief period, increasing our movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds, so we're just a little quicker for the 4 seconds when we first activate this ability. Next ability we have is down in the one-handed shield skill line. It is the second ability to unlock. Starts off as Low Slash. We then morph it to Deep Slash. This has a range of 5 meters with a 6 meter radius. We end up dealing 3,700 physical damage on the target. Also on top of it, to all other nearby enemies. We also reduce the movement speed to all the enemies we hit by it in that 6 meter radius for 30% for 4 seconds. This also afflicts all enemies hit with Minor Main, reducing their damage done by 5% for 12 seconds. So now by reducing enemies' damage done to our group and ourselves, we become more tankier, and we also make it a lot easier for our DPS actually now to survive, because they're not taking as much damage, because you can't taunt everything in the dungeon. You want to taunt the main bigger bosses, but we won't get everybody, so by applying this, we make it a little bit easier for our squishy DPS to survive. Going into our next ability we have is all the way down into the Fighter's Guild ability, or skill line I should say. It is the first ability to unlock. Starts off as Silver Bolt. We then morph it to Silver Leech. This has a 22 meter range. This we fire our Dawnguard's Bolt to hook and pull an enemy to us to deal 3,000 physical damage and reduce their movement speed by 30% for 4 seconds. Now, this is for the ads that you have usually out on the outer rim of your melee fighters. These are usually your sorcerers and archers. You want to pull that stuff in to actually group your enemies a lot more efficiently, so that way DPS only need to concentrate in one spot instead of kind of all over the room. Since our class does not have a pull ability, this is what we'll end up using for our pull. So, moving on over into our next ability we have is all the way back up into Daedric Summoning. It is the first ability to unlock. Starts off as Summon Unstable Familiar. We then morph it to Summon Unstable Clan Fear. This has a cast time of 1.5 seconds on ourselves. This commands the power of Oblivion to send a Daedric Clan Fear to fight along our side. The Clan Fear headbutts deals 748 physical damage when its tail spikes hit nearby enemies for 7,480 physical damage after 1 second. Now, once summoned, you can activate the Clan Fear special ability for 4,095 magicka to heal for 14,800 and the Clan Fear for 7,400. Now, this is our oh snap, we're gonna die type of heal, because I have healed with this Clan Fear before, as I can show you. The Clan Fear is here, so see right there, I just got 17,900. Now, if we go until we crit heal this, 28,715 health. So, yes, if you could crit heal this, you're going to get majority of your health back, because I got 40k health. 28,000 is a lot of health. That's over half of our health we just got back. So, Clan Fear is our oh snap, we're gonna die heal, and it should be used for. Now, the Clan Fear remains at our side until killed or unsummoned. So, if you do not slot this ability on our back bar, or on both bars, which we have it slotted on both bars, if we don't have it slotted, it will go away, and then you have to spend 3,100 magicka again, and have to wait a second and a half in order for your Clan Fear to come up. So, remember, slot this on both bars. Now, moving over into our next ability we have is down in the one-handed shield skill line again. It is the first ability to unlock, starts off as Puncture. We then morph it to Pierce Armor. This has a 5-meter range, and we're pierce an enemy, dealing 2,500 physical damage, and then we taunt them to attack us for 15 seconds. So this is our major taunt, and this is a taunt we want to use most of the time. There's another taunt we'll go over that I use if it's for range attacks, but when they come in close, this is the taunt we want to run. The reason for that is because when we use this, we also inflict minor breach and major breach on the enemy. This reduces physical resistance and spell resistance by 2,900 and 5,900 for 15 seconds. So roughly, if we just kind of round those numbers up, straight up to, you know, the 2,000 to 3,000, the 5,000 to 6,000, we are reducing the enemy's resistance by 9,000 both physical and spell resistance. And for those that don't know, every enemy in PVE content in your dungeons, your vet dungeons, have 18,200 physical and spell resistance. By applying this to them, we're now dropping them down to roughly 9,200 physical and spell resistance. The lower an enemy's resistance is, the harder your allies are going to hit. So your DPS are going to hit that target way harder, because that's less armor that they actually have to cut through to hit major blows. So this is why it's important to really debuff your enemies with this type of taunt, because your DPS are going to hit harder, the fights are going to last shorter. Now, over into the ultimate we are actually all the way down into the Psijic Order. It starts off as Undo, we then morph it to Temporal Guard. This is on ourself, and for a cost of 106 ultimate, a very low cost. This allows us to step backwards in time, resetting our health, magicka, stamp, and the position that we were 4 seconds ago. So if you're running in a straight line, you pop this, you go back 4 seconds to the original spot where you started. We don't really use this ultimate. The only reason we use it is because it's wall slotted. We gain minor protection, reducing our damage taken by 5%. So since our sword and shield bar is where we're going to tank up a lot of times and defend ourselves, it's best to have this on this bar just to reduce the damage taken by 5%. If you don't feel like you need damage taken, then good alternate one you could go is up in the one-handed shield skill line. I haven't used it yet, but you have shield wall here. This reinforces your shield, allowing you to automatically block all attacks at no cost for 5 seconds. So this is the part that really helps you out a lot, because now at no cost you can sit there and not even hold black and just keep going with abilities with only 95 ultimate cost. If you so desire, you could go with this morph as well. Now, over into our staff bar. Starting with the first ability we have is our flexibility. It is our first ability to unlock. It starts off as Crystal Shard. We then morph it to Crystal Fragment. This has a 28-meter range. This, we conjure a Dark Crystal to bombard an enemy, dealing 3,700 magicka damage. And then our next non-ultimate ability cast within 3 seconds costs 10% less, so we lower the cost of our abilities by 10% within 3 seconds. Also, casting a magic ability has a 35% chance to cause our next Crystal Fragment to be an instant, so we can cast it and deal 66% more damage and cost 50% less magicka. So this is kind of why I run this, is because we do have a lot of magic ability costing ones. We have, of course, we have Crystal Fragment, we have Blockade of Storm, we got Restraining Prison, we got the Clan Fear, and then we even have Boundless Storms. That's why I like Crystal Fragments. You can do that, but like I said, this is flex spots. If we want to, we can do some other abilities. We can even go into Daedric Summoning. We can do Bound Ages to give ourselves block mitigation. This one also, you know, while slotted, we get max magicka, increasing it by 6%. Also, we get minor resolve, increasing our physical and spell resistance by 2,900. We could actually, you know, swap that where our Boundless Storm is, and put Boundless Storm where Crystal Fragment is, and then put Bound Aegis here. Like I said, you got a couple of choices for slots here. There's one there. I mean, we could go all the way back down even into the Assault skill line, and we could go even Caltrops too. Reduce movement speed. If you go Razor Caltrops, then you actually have an area of effect that reduces enemies' physical and spell resistance. So, moving on into the next ability we have is down into our Destruction Staff skill line. It is the second ability to unlock. Starts off as Wall of Elements. We then morph it to Elemental Blockade. This is a 28 by 12 meter range, so it's a rectangle shape area of effect that lasts for 14 seconds that deals 416 magicka damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second. We are running a Lightning Staff on this, so we will look at Blockade of Storms. We set concussed enemies off balance. So, concuss is like a type of stone that's kind of getting there, and then if they are concussed by laying this down, we actually send them off balance. With one of the sets we actually are running, we actually have concuss on it, so we will end up being able to apply off balance that will let our DPS actually hit harder to off balance enemies. So we'll get to the sets later and why we run, and this will make sense on why we run Elemental Blockade, or Blockade of Storms is what it's called. Moving over into the next ability we have is back up into the Dark Magic skill line. It is the second ability to unlock. Starts off as Encase. We then morph it to Imprison. This has an 18 by 6 meter range, so kind of the same area of our Blockade of Storm does, just half the width. We call forth the Daedric Shards from the earth to immobilize enemies in front of us for 6 seconds. If no enemies are immobilized or basically stopped, basically is what immobilized is, they can't move, we restore 2,400 magicka. Now, hitting an enemy grants us major vitality, increasing our healing received by 16%. So that is when healers are healing the group members, we actually get more healing done to us because we have now this major vitality to increase our healing received. Now, for 2 seconds. Plus 1 extra second per enemy in the area up to a maximum of 6 enemies. So, if we don't hit anybody, we have it for 2 seconds. Now, we hit a total of 6 enemies. Now, we get it now for a total of 8 seconds. So, the more enemies you hit with this, the better and the longer we'll have major vitality to increase our healing received by 16%. Next ability we have is back in the Daedric Summoning. It is our Clan Fear. This is why we double barred on both bars. This one does 716 physical damage when it headbutts on this bar, and does 761 physical damage on our staff bar. On our sword and board bar, it's 748, both the headbutt and tail spike. This one is just a little bit lower with the headbutt, but higher with the tail spike. Next ability we have is all the way down into the Undaunted skill line. It is the third ability to unlock. Starts off as Inner Fire. We then morph it to Inner Beast. This has a 28 meter range that deals 2,300 physical damage and taunts enemies to attack us for 15 seconds. Like I said, this is our range of taunt ability that what really comes in handy is for Imperial City Prison when you are facing the Lord Warden, the final boss. There's a shade phase where he summons 4 shades that your allies have to attack. When 2 of them can be attackable, 2 of them cannot be attacked. At this point in time, this is where Inner Beast comes in. Important because you can sit there, find a spot where you can actually hit all 4 of the targets, and you literally taunt all 4. Instead of running around the arena, wasting your stam, and, you know, sitting there hitting with Pierce Armor here, because that's also a stam ability. Yes, not a very high cost, but the more you're running around, the more you're going to lose stam, and so you're not going to be able to cast it. Yes, this is about 1,000 more stam to use, but you can sit there, use it, buff yourself up, make sure you have heals going and stuff like that. Now, for the ultimate we are using on this bar is down in the Assault skill line. Starts off as Warhorn. We then morph it to Aggressive Warhorn. This has a 20-meter radius and lasts for 30 seconds with a whopping low cost of 177. In the game, Warhorn usually costs 250 ultimates, but we'll be going over passives and stuff and things that I'm wearing that actually helps us lower the cost almost by 100 points. So a very low cost of 177 ultimate, and these are things why we end up running this is because we increase ours and our group members max magicka and max stam by 10% for 30 seconds. So everybody's now giving bigger pools, especially for our DPS. We're increasing their stam pool and their magical pool so they can actually deal more damage for a greater amount of time. On top of it, us and our allies gain major force, increasing our critical damage done by 20% for 10 seconds. So the first 10 seconds of this Warhorn, this is where usually the phase where everybody ends up dropping their ulti dumping on the boss, is what we usually call it, where everybody drops their ultimate. And then on top of it, especially in execute phases, this is a very good point where to run Aggressive Warhorn again, is because a lot of people are going to be doing their execute abilities that tend to do a lot more damage, like 300% more damage when enemies below a certain health point, like below 50% health or even 25% health. So this is why we run Aggressive Warhorn, to help out with burning bosses quicker, to make fights last shorter. Now that we got that out of the way, let's go over into passive, starting all the way back up into our dark magic skill line. First passive we have is Unholy Knowledge. This reduces our health, magicka, and stam cost of our abilities by 6%. This helps a lot for tanking, especially because now we're reducing cost of stuff, so we don't have to spend so much resources. But as you can see anyways, I have decently good size resource pools, both in stam and magicka, but I like bigger resource pools. That way I feel like I have more flexibility in stuff. Next passive we have is Blood Magic. When we hit an enemy with a directly applied dark magic ability, we heal for 4,600. This effect is scaled off our max health, so we're getting more health back because this is our health, so the higher health you're going to get more from this, and this can occur once every half a second. Now, our direct applied things are Crystal Fragments and then Restraining Prison, so both of those can kind of heal us. Persistence. After blocking an attack, our next health, magicka, and stamina ability costs 15% left. So we already get a reduced cost to our abilities by 6%. Now, by just even blocking an attack, when we want to cast an ability that costs health, magicka, and stam, that's even now lower. So this helps out a lot, especially for a tank, to cast those resources out there. Exploitation is this one. When we cast a dark magic ability, we grant Minor Prophecy to us and our group members, increasing our spell critical rating by 1,300 for 20 seconds. So by just even casting, like I said, by just casting Restoring Prison or Restraining Prison and Crystal Fragments, we're actually increasing our group's spell critical by Minor Prophecy. This can stack with Major, so this helps our group out just a little bit, but just enough to help out, just giving everybody more critical chance. Over into Daedric Summoning, we have Rebate. We restore 300 magicka or stam when we use one of our non-ultimate Daedric Summoning ability ends. The restore is returned directly by abilities cost, since we only have basically our Clanfear. Whenever our Clanfear gets unsummoned, that's when we get resources back based off the ability. So it's 300 from this ability as is. So this would actually technically be 3,494 magicka is what it would be. Power Restore here reduces the cost of our ultimate abilities by 15%. So this is what's helping lower our Warhorn and Temporal Guard. Daedric Protection, increasing our health and stam recovery by 20% while we have a Daedric Summoning ability slotted. So we have our Clanfear on our staff bar and on our sword and board bar, so we get that health recovery by 20% on both bars. Expert Summoner, increase the maximum health by 8% while we have a Daedric Summoning pet active. A Clanfear is a pet, so that we are increasing our max health by 8% on both bars. That is why I have the Clanfear slotted on both bars, is that way we have an oh snap, we're gonna die heal on both bars, and on top of it we get more health and stam recovery. Storm Calling. First passive we have here is Capacitator, increasing our magicka recovery by 10%. So we got now Stam and health recovery by 20% for our Daedric Summoning passive. Now in Storm Calling, now we get 10% in our magicka recovery here. Energize, increase our physical and shock damage by 5%, so we get a little bit of damage. We ain't really much of a damage dealer, but that still helps out a lot. It kind of helps with when we use our crystal fragments on our X button there. Amplitude increases our damage done against enemies by 1% for every 10% current health they have. So at 100%, we actually have 10% more damage we can do. As their health goes down, the lower percent damage we actually do against them. Expert Mage here increases our weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcery ability slotted. On our staff bar, we have 6% here. On our sword board, we only have 4%. So, moving on into one-handed shield skill lines. For passives, we have Fortress. This reduces the stam cost of our one-handed shield ability by 15%. And we reduce the cost of blocking by 36%. This helps for not losing as much stam when we block enemies and stuff like that as we take hits. Sword and board increase our weapon damage by 5% and the amount of damage we can block by 20%. Now we're absorbing more damage and we're mitigating a lot of the damage that comes against us. So, making us a lot more tankier and survivable that way. Deadly Bash, improving our standard bash attacks, causing enemies to deal 1,500 more damage and cost 40% less stam. Deflected Bullets increase the amount of damage we can block from projectiles and ranged attacks. So projectiles means bows and arrows, and ranged attacks basically is anybody using magicka damage against us. So we now block 14% more stacked with 20% here, so we have a whopping 34% more damage we can block from just magic projectiles and bows and arrows. Battlefield Mobility reduces the movement speed of penalty of bracing by 36%, so we can actually move a little bit quicker when we're actually holding up our shield here. And since we have our Synergic ability here, we get that nice bubble that I'll just talk about in a little bit. Now in our Destruction Staff skill line, we have Tri-Focus. Since we are using a Shock Staff's heavy attacks damage nearby enemies for 100% more damage done. So with heavy attacks, we end up hitting enemies around them, and they deal 100% more damage to them. Penetrating Magic. Our Destruction Staff abilities ignore 10% of enemy spell resistance, so our Wall of Storms or Elemental Blockade here will end up ignoring 10% of their enemy's spell resistance. Elemental Force, increase the chance to apply an elemental status effect by 100%. So this gives us a chance to apply the Concuss effect on enemies. Concuss can be applied from Lightning Staffs, as I'm pretty sure we'll talk about later here in the passives. Ancient Knowledge, when we equipped a Lightning Staff, increase the damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%, since our Elemental Blockade is an area of effects, we're going to do a little bit more damage when that is up. Destruction Expert, when we kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability, we restore 3,600 magicka. When we absorb damage using a Destruction Staff shield, we restore 1,800 magicka. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. Now moving on over into our armor here. Now for armor wise, I'm running a 5:1 ratio. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is 5 pieces on my guy that I'm wearing is heavy armor, 1 piece is light, and 1 piece is medium. Now, it may look confusing in the passives here because I actually used to run this guy on light armor, but we'll get over into these passives and what passives you should be running and what ones you shouldn't, because of that you need 5 pieces or more. So starting off with Grace here in the light armor, we reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to us by 4% and reduce the cost of sprint by 3%. So snares have less potency on us and we can reduce the cost of sprinting so we can have longer sprints. Advocate, this increases our magicka recovery by 4% and reduce magicka cost of our abilities by 2%. We have quite a bit of magicka ability, so this helps a little bit. Spell Ward, this increases our spell resistance by 363 for each light armor equipped. Now, Prodigy and Concentration here do not apply to us, even though I have them unlocked. This is only when you're wearing 5 pieces or more of light armor. I used to run this tank build in light armor, but to make it user-friendly to newer players and veteran players, I decided to go back to heavy armor with this guy. So this does not apply to us. Now over into medium armor, we have Dexterity, increasing our weapon critical rating by 328. Windwalker, this increases our stam recovery by 4% and reduces the stam cost of our abilities by 2%. We do have them there, so this helps. Improved Sneak, you can use this if you so desire. I don't, because I don't feel like a sneaky type with this. Agility is for 5 pieces or more, so we cannot use this. Now Athletics here, increase the movement speed bonus of sprint by 3%, so we actually move a little bit quicker while we're sprinting now. And also reduce the cost of roll dodge by 4%. As a tank, you will end up roll dodging down again sometimes, so by reducing your roll dodge by 4%, this will help. Heavy armor, we have Resolve, increasing our physical and spell resistance by 1,800 since we have 5 pieces. Constitution, increasing our health recovery by 20%. Also, we restore 108 magicka, or I should take that back. We restore 541 magicka and stamina when we take damage for each piece of heavy armor equipped. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. Juggernaut here increases our max health by 2% or by 10%. Televise, this increases our magic and stam of our heavy attacks restored by 25% when we are heavy attacking, since we are wearing 5 pieces or more of heavy armor. Rapid Mending, when this one increases our healing received by 8%. On top of it, now we use our Prism and hit 6 enemies, we get Major Vitality, that's 6% there, and now we get 8% here for this passive. Soul Magic, Soul Summoning would be a passive I'd get. I just haven't got it up there. This allows us to revive once every hour when it's 2 out of 2 without spending a soul gem. This helps you save on soul gems for repairing armors and stuff. Also revives as well. Fighters Guild, I have Intimidating Presence here. This is to help reduce the stamina cost of our Fighters Guild ability or our Silver Leash ability, also allowing us to intimidate NPCs for questing. Slayer here, this increases our weapon damage by 3% for each Fire Guild ability slot. We have one here and none on the other bar, so we get 3% there. Banish of the Wicked, I would recommend getting this 3 out of 3 because this will allow us to generate 9 ultimate whenever we kill a Daedra or undead Daedra or werewolf, and vampires are considered undead, and there are a ton of them in the game, so it just gives us the off chance just to generate some ultimate when we do damage or kill an enemy, so that's why I would get it. Over in Mage's Guild, we have Persuasive Will. This is just questing purposes here. Psijic Order, we have Concentrating Barrier. When we have a Psijic Order ability slotted, and Brace, we gain a damage shield that absorbs 5,400 damage. This damage shield recharges back to full strength after spending 10 seconds not bracing. So that's what I was talking about, is this. This is us bracing. This is our damage shield. If an enemy damages it and for 5,400 damage, the shield goes away and we got to spend 10 seconds like this, not blocking, in order for the shield to come back up. Over the Undaunted, a good passive to get is Undaunted Command. Activating a synergy restores 4% of our max health, stam, and magicka, so we get 1,800 health, 939 stam, and 680 magicka. So when you see synergies, use synergies. This will help us keep our resources up. Undaunted Metal here, this increases our max health, stam, and magicka by 2% per type of armor worn. So we're at least wearing light, 1 heavy, 1 medium, and 1 light. So we get a 6% bonus here. Now for race, I am running the Imperial. I like the Imperial race for a lot of the passives that we'll just be going over a little bit. Other races that could be good races are, you got Nords can make good tanks, Argonians make good tanks, Orcs make very good tanks, but like I said earlier in this video, you guys could choose what you want to do. If you want to go, let's say, a Breton or even a Wood Elf, go for it. But just keep in mind, things are going to be a little bit different compared to what it is based off of Imperial passives. My passives here is Tough, which increases max health by 2,000, so it gives me a bigger health pool. Imperial Metal, this increases my max stam by 2,000, so it gives me more stam. Red Diamond here reduces the cost of all our abilities by 3%, so that is health, magicka, stam, and ultimate. So yes, that's also now another thing that's reducing the cost of our ultimate here. On top of it, when we deal direct damage, we heal ourselves 379, and we restore 333 magicka and stam. This can occur once every 5 seconds, so at least damaging someone every 5 seconds, we're gonna get, or dealing direct damage every 5 seconds, we'll get resources back. Direct damage is usually when you hit them with a sword like this, or light attack with a staff. Now, over into alchemy, we have medicinal use, most important passive in the game. When using a potion, the effects last 30% longer. At base value, the effects on your potions only last you for 36 seconds. And your potion cooldown is for 45 seconds, so you got that 9-second gap where you don't get the buffs, and you gotta wait to pop another potion. So medicinal use, when you get this, increases your potion length up to, with the bonuses in it, up to 47 seconds with a 45-second cooldown, so you got 2-second gap window to keep your buffs up for 100% of the time. So get medicinal use, very important skill in the game. Provisioning, I have 3 points into gourmet here because this adds 20 minutes to the duration of any eating food. Because I'm using a food buff, this is why I went with it. Now, if you wanted to decide to run, let's say, a drink, then I would go connoisseur, because this would add 20 minutes to the duration of any consumed drink you are running. Now, time to go over into gears and stuff I am running, starting with slottable items. I am running the Bewitched Sugar Skulls to increase my max health by 4,600, max stam and max magicka by 4,200, and a health recovery by 462 for 2 hours and 20 minutes. Now, if you don't have Bewitched Sugar Skull daily logins, you get Crown Fortified Meals. This will work just as well. You just don't get the health recovery. And yes, max health, max magicka, and max stam is slightly lower than Bewitched Sugar Skulls, but Bewitched Sugar Skulls can be expensive. Now, for potions I'm running Crown Tri Restoration Spot. You can make Essence of Health that give you resources back both in health, stam, and magicka, like this one does. This one gives us 9,500 health, 7,500 magicka, and stam. On top of it, this grants us major fortitude, major intellect, and major endurance, which increases our health, magicka, and stam recovery by 40% for 47 seconds. With a 45-second cooldown, this is where medicinal use comes into play. Now, going over the gear, starting with our sword and shield, I am running the Activary Dragon Guard. For the enchantment on this, we went the Weakening Enchantment to reduce target's weapon and spell damage by 160 for 5 seconds. With the defending trait, just increase our resistances up. Since this is a kind of our tanky bard, this is what we want for resistance-wise. Now, the Activary Dragon Guard set. For 2 pieces, we get Magicka Recovery, 124 Magicka Recovery. 3 items, we get 40% healing taken, so on top of now that Major Vitality we get, and our passive of Heavy Armor. With this, now we get another 4% to that. Now we have a lot of healing taken. 4 items, we get max health by 1,100. 5 piece, we get 152 health recovery. And for 5 pieces, reduce the cost of your ultimate abilities by 15%. This is why our aggressive Warhorn is only at 175. Is Activary Dragon Guard, the Imperial Race. On top of it, our passives and our Sorcerer's abilities. The passives and the Sorcerer skill lines. Now, over into the shield, we are running Max Stam Enchantment on this one with Sturdy trait just to reduce the cost of blocking. Our staffs here is running the Crusher's Enchantment to reduce the target's physical and spell resistance by 1,400 for 5 seconds when this proc. With the charge trait on it, just to increase the chance to apply this phase effect by 200%. So on top of our staff applying it, 100%, now we got 200, still 300%. Gives us a lot better odds of actually proccing it. It doesn't mean we're gonna like do with the 300%. It's not like we're doing it 3 times over. We just got a really good chance of proccing it. The status effect of Concuss with lightning. And everything on from my back bar to necklace and rings will be run in the Activary Dragon Guard set. Now, for Monster Helm, this may seem like a weird monster set to be running for a tank, but I just kind of wanted it for how the setup the build is to make it a lot easier for people to tank. So, for the head here, we have Celestrix, guys, with max stam enchantment on it in the infused trait, since this is one of our bigger pieces of body. The head, chest, and legs are usually your bigger armor pieces, so they'll give you more out of your enchantment, while the shoulders, waist, hands, and feet are the smaller pieces, so not quite high of enchantments on them. So, for Celestrix here, this adds 1000 max stam, so it gives us a bigger stam pool. On top of it, when we deal damage, we create a earthquake under the enemy that erupts after 1.5 seconds, dealing 8,900 physical damage to all enemies within 4 meters, and stuns them for 3 seconds. A stun in the game is a hard crowd control or hard CC. You can stack these with a lot of soft CCs, but you can't stack a hard crowd control with another hard crowd control. So we're going to basically, when this goes off, you're going to see enemies basically drop to the floor is what this is going to happen, and they're going to be there for 3 seconds until they get up. Now, this effect can occur only once every 6 seconds. Now that we go into our other gear here, Livewire, we did max stam enchantment on this, which will also be max stam on the legs too. For the bigger pieces, we want the stam enchantments. With reinforced traits, since this is our biggest piece of armor, we get the most out of this for resistance wise. Now, the Livewire set, we get 4% healing taken, so that's now adding to all of our other passives that we were talking about earlier. We get 1,100 max health for 3 pieces. 4 pieces, another 4% healing taken. The 5-piece bonus is when we take damage, so we just have to sit there, look pretty, and when we take damage, we will overload our circuits, applying concussion to enemies within 8 meters of us, and healing for 1,100 health for each enemy hit. So, by just taking damage, we're going to apply concuss to all the enemies within 8 meters, and heal for 1,100 health. And this can occur every 6 seconds. Once every 6 seconds. Now, you just dealt damage with concuss. With lightning. You are going to now proc this, because this is when you deal damage. So, just by holding block, you take damage, you overload your circuits, apply concuss. You're going to burst lightning out in an 8 meter radius. Then, this is you dealt damage now with that. Now you're going to wait 1.5 seconds, and you're going to do an earthquake, and now all the enemies are going to be on the floor. Now we'll go over to this part of it. You now just applied concuss to all the enemies within the area. By now laying down our ability called Blockade of Storms, as it says closer to the bottom, shock damage to enemies in the target area every 1 second. And setting concussed enemies off balance for 7 seconds. So, they got concussed from our Livewire. You drop your Blockade of Storms. You're going to set them off balance. They're going to drop to the floor. As they get up, this is the perfect time to then sit there and do restraining prisons on them, because they're not moving, so it's a lot easier to keep them all grouped as you sit there and pull in adds with our Silver Leash ability. This is how a lot of these things are kind of compounding on each other. This is why this build, this is my idea of setting up the build of a lot of things kind of compounding on each other to make it a lot easier for people who want to tank, make it a lot easier for them to tank, and also for those vet players who know how to tank to make it very easy for them to keep on tanking. Shoulders here, this is part of Celestrix armor. We did go medium armor here, with the head being light. Everything else, Livewire is a heavy armor set. Same with Activary Dragon Guard, so if you want Activary Dragon Guard on your front, you sure can, because that is also heavy armor set. But anyways, with the shoulder, we want max magic enchantment is on all of our light pieces here. With the sturdy trait, waist is also sturdy trait, hands is sturdy trait, and the feet is sturdy trait. We want sturdy trait on all the small pieces. Legs here is we want reinforce. Again, this is a big piece, so we want stam enchantment here. Over in accessories, this is, like I said, this is all part of the Activary Dragon Guard set. We want stam recovery enchantment on the necklace to add 175 stam recovery with healthy trait on every single one of them. Ring 1 we have stam recovery, and ring 2 we have magicka recovery. If you want to put magicka recovery on your necklace just to keep your 2 stams on your ring, just to kind of keep things simpler, you can do that too. I just was playing around with it, and it ended up being that I just had a magicka recovery on my ring instead of on my neck. Now, Oh, going into our champion points. Starting off in the green train with the tower. We have 66 points into Warlord. This reduces the cost of breaking free. 9 points into Sprinter to reduce the cost of sprinting. Bash Focus, reduce the cost of bashing. In the Lover, we have 43 points into Tenacity, increase our magicka and stam of our fully charged heavy attacks to restore more. In the Shadow, we have 60 points into Tumbling. This reduces the cost of roll dodge. 71 points into Shadow Ward. This reduces the cost of blocking. Over in the blue tree with the Apprentice, we have 75 points into Bless. This increases our healing done. So when we are using our Clan Fear, we're going to end up healing more. That's why I can crit up to 28,000 health. Elfborn, this increases our critical damage and critical heal. That's also why I can hit that. Clan Fear, oh snap, we're going to die heal up to 28k because when we crit heal, applies to it. We got 1 point into Spell Erosion just because we needed a point somewheres. We got 2 points into Staff Expert because that's the bar we're going to mostly be on just to apply that Crusher enchantment on since it's a big piece. Because this will increase our damage done with light and heavy attacks with our staff abilities. We have 31 points into Master at Arms. This increases the damage done with direct damage attacks. In the Ritual, we have 40 points into Temperatures. This increases the damage done with damage over time effects. Precise Strikes, this increases the critical damage and critical heal with stam abilities. So if we do stuff with stam, which is mostly damage, we're going to do with stams to crit it chance, give it up a little bit. 43 points into Mighty increases our physical, poison, and disease damage done. Now on the red, starting with the Steed, we have 72 points in Ironclad. This reduces our damage taken from direct damage attacks. In the Lady, we have 56 points into Thick Skin, Elemental Defender, and Hardy. Thick Skin reduces damage taken from damage over time effects. Elemental Defender reduces damage taken from any magic-based damage like Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic. Hardy reduces damage taken from physical, poison, and disease damage. Now, if it is damage over time that does poison damage, Thick Skin and Hardy will stack on top of each other for how much damage reduction you have. Now, if it's over time, in Magic with Flame, Frost, Shock, or Magic damage, then Thick Skin and Elemental will stack. It's the same goes for Ironclad. Ironclad, any direct damage that is physical and spell will stack with Hardy and Elemental Defender if it's a direct. Ironclad direct, Thick Skin over time. In the Lord, we have 18 points into Bastion. You're wondering where this increases the effectiveness of our damage shield. Where do you have a damage shield? It's when we're bracing with the Sigil Order that's considered damage shield, so that is what's increasing here. This is why we have 18 points here, because I know a lot of you guys are saying, but you don't have a damage shield. Yes, it's when we're bracing and our Sigil Order shield comes up. That is our damage shield, so we're getting a little bit there. If you want to, you could actually put 19 or 11 points here into Quick Recovery if you so desire, and put in more points into Heavy Armor Focus if you so desire, or move those points into any other tree, but this is just the way I like to do it. Now, 12 points into Heavy Armor Focus to increase our physical resistance while wearing 5 pieces or more of heavy armor. So, there you have it for the Paladin of Julianos. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see more from me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, smash that notification bell so that way you can stay up to date with any of my content. You can also follow me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/CPT_NateDog729. There I am streaming Vet Dungeon Delves on my build or on builds that I am currently working on. Again, thank you all for watching and subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one.